Welcome to City Grow. We are live. My name is John. I'm here with Channing, one of the gurus from our Account Pro team. I brought Channing on board to really give us some text marketing tips, right? That's what we're talking about today.
Absolutely.
This is one of the reoccurring questions that we get a lot is, how can I get better results from text marketing? So that's kind of the purpose of this question today. And we talk about it a lot. We've talked about consent before, so
Absolutely.
we'll skip that a little bit. We've talked about a whole lot of stuff, incentives. What is your goal today to talk about as far as marketing tips go?
Sure. Just a couple kind of things we're going to talk about today is really evaluating the relevancy of your text messages, mainly based on time. Making sure that text messages are relevant to people at whatever time they have visited, or just kind of like where they are in their lives. So we're going to kind of mention about the relevancy of text messages, kind of like how you go about making sure text messages are relevant to people, and kind of the tips and tricks to actually making sure that customers see it and actually react to it.
So one of the common pieces of feedback we get when we're mostly maybe the sales or people that are really new to text marketing is, I don't want to be spamming my customers. Would you say that that's the difference between an unwanted message, and it probably goes the same with email and any other message that we create, but wouldn't relevancy be the difference between a spam message and a non-spam message?
Absolutely. I mean, really, a spam message is just an unwanted message. And so if it's something that interests you or something that you would like, it's no longer spam. And the funny thing is in your spam folder, sometimes some of those things you want ends up there, because we're so quick to just say that's spam. And so I think a lot of our customers kind of struggle with that. They feel like, I don't want to overload people. But when people give you consent to message them, they're interested in hearing from you. Yeah. They truly, genuinely want to know what you have to offer them. And so that's what these messages are all about, is reaching out and utilizing that relationship that they're willing to have with you.
It's a relevancy.
Yep.
Cool. The other thing I see relevancy really big on is that. So let me step back. Another question we get a lot is, how often can I contact my customers?
Yeah.
Relevancy ties into that too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are afraid to overload people because they're like, even though this event, is happening, that event just happened. I don't want to, reach out to them and make them feel like they're just receiving a whole bunch of stuff from me. I have one customer that I work with closely, and they send out messages twice a week without fail.
Oh, really?
They send out messages twice a week, and honestly, they have so many people that just love getting their messages because it gives them, it's relevant. It's things they want. Okay. And so it's how you go about doing it that makes it successful or not.
Well, so let's dive in there. Let's break down relevancy, and let's see if we can give some really kind of hands-on information on what makes your messages relevant.
Sure.
So I wrote down a couple notes from our previous discussion. One of the things we talked about was dates, where people are likely to act certain ways on certain dates, like birthdays, or we've actually had some luck with half birthdays.
Right.
Talk about dates a little bit on sending relevancy based on dates.
Yeah, absolutely. Having dates is one of the easiest ways of sending out messages at a relevant time to customers. I mean, if you ask for a birthday and they give it to you, automatically you have a relevant date in their life that means something to them. And so, being able to gather that kind of information and having ways to be able to send messages out to them at times where it's relevant to them, they're excited about it. It really helps bring in that relevancy and really make people excited and happy that they heard from you. So like birthday messages are a great way of making people, glad they reached out to me. And not only that, but it builds that relationship between you and them, because they know that it's probably an automated message that they received. Probably someone wasn't there just typing in happy birthday to them. They still
we're watching every day whose birthday it is, and personally sending text messages.
But they feel like, they care enough about me that they'll offer, they want me to have something in return for our relationship. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Dates are a great way. I mean, anniversaries, other things, there's a lot of different dates in people's lives that mean something, and every industry has different dates that their customers find that are important to them. Yeah. But definitely one of the easiest ones that most people can relate to is a birthday.
Yeah. Well, okay. So some things I've seen really work with birthdays. Yeah. People tend to go in groups in birthdays. So group messages, group rates, group incentives,
Sure. Yeah.
those tend to work really well. And keep in mind where you might look at it and think, well, birthdays only happen once a year, so it's not a huge campaign for us. But let's say I have 2,000 people in my network. You're likely to have, 4 people, 5 people having a birthday every day?
Absolutely.
So if you do it by the month especially, I mean, that can add up. And if you're using that and using maybe a group incentive to say, hey, bring your party here for your birthday, depending on what kind of business you are, right? The numbers can really add up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, how many people celebrate their birthday alone?
Yeah.
Like, very few people. Hopefully you're not
just
celebrating
me.
your birthday
I'm
alone,
probably the only one in the world.
It is just you, John, just so you know. But yeah, so I mean, the great thing about some of these dates is usually these dates mean something to people, and they make it important for other people as well. So it can bring groups of people to you. And it's just an exciting way to be able to reach out and even bring in new customers.
Cool. Okay, so we covered birth dates. By the way, I just wanted to put a plug in for this half birthday idea. It actually came from a university we work with. Where they started realizing that on birthdays, everyone gets a lot of messages, right?
Yeah.
You tend to get mailers in the mail, and everyone starts to know it's your birthdays. On half birthdays, most people don't know it's your half birthday.
Sure.
So it's kind of a surprise. Oh man, let's celebrate. It's a reason to celebrate, right? So if you can use your whatever software you're using to send text marketing messages, it's as simple as taking your birth date plus or minus 6 months.
Absolutely.
Right? And then trigger that out and say happy on birthday this month or happy half birthday this month. Let's celebrate. So those are good. And like you said, anniversary dates, that kind of thing. Okay, so away from dates, let's continue on the path of relevancy. One of the things you mentioned is based on customer behavior, which I love, and there's a lot of stuff that we can do based on customer behavior, but will you break that down for us a little bit more?
Sure. So first off, tracking customer behavior really comes down to, for most of the companies that we work with, is tracking when they're coming in, how often they're coming in, and being able to watch and see what their kind of their habits. Are they coming in often? Are they not? But one of the beautiful things about tracking the customer behavior is it allows you to understand the mind of your customer. And so a couple things that we want to, that hopefully you're able to do, hopefully you're able to track through whatever software you're using, when people come in. Sometimes even you can gather when people come in, why they come in. Some companies ask those kind of information, and you can be able to use that as marketing kind of ways to segregate people into different different kind of things. And so it's really important that we remember that our customers' behavior makes the relevancy of our messages even more important.
Okay, so let me try to break down what you just said, maybe in some practical solutions that our listeners can use, right? So once again, the purpose of this podcast is for everyone, not just CityGrow users. So if I don't use CityGrow, I could use multiple keywords to segment people.
Sure.
So based on my business, if I have 2 core products for dining out, that might be lunch and dinner. For retail, that might be different product line, men's and women's. Mm-hmm. Salon, that might be hair or spa or something. So I could segment them based on the behaviors they either buy or on keywords, something like that. So product specific stuff. Is that kind of the things you're talking about?
Yeah,
segmenting based on those behaviors of what I purchase?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Talk a little bit about segmenting based on time. You had talked about like triggers that you often set up based on how long it's been since you've come in.
Yeah.
What different triggers do you set up there? Absolutely.
One of the most common, it really depends on your market, obviously, kind of like how often you feel like customers should be coming in. But the concept behind it is, a customer hasn't been in a certain amount of time, and you're like, you know what, if they haven't been in this amount of time, I feel like they need some encouragement to come back. Okay. So let's say that we think that's 4 weeks. Something that you can do is you can, at 4 weeks, you have an automated message that is sent out to this person, and those messages can either remind them that you're there, remind them about products you have or services that you have, or one of the most effective ways of reaching out through these automated is offering some type of incentive to come back. And so you reach out with these things, and it gives them a reason to remember you, and not only that, but be like, hey, I'd like to come back, and I have a reason to come back.
So tracking behavior is cool because you can tie the incentives based on how long it's been, right?
Absolutely.
Because if I can get everyone in with a 10% off, and we'll talk a little bit about A/B testing too, because this fits in the realm there. If I can get you in with 10% off, I'm going to try that before I give you a, buy one get one half off,
Right.
or buy one get one free,
Absolutely.
or build up the incentive. So by tracking behaviors and sending based on how long it's been, you might be able to trigger a different one at 1 week, then at 3 weeks, then at 6 weeks. Am I correct on that? Setting that up?
In fact, you want to, honestly, the most effective kind of strategies is having multiple messages go out to reach out. I mean, how often do you attempt to just talk to someone one time, and you're just going to give up. You want to reach out, especially someone that's been in before. They're way more likely to come in than someone randomly on the street, trying to convince them to come in.
Gotcha.
So one of the great ways is when you send these messages, send messages and send incentives that increase in kind of, in aggressiveness, I guess you could say, because you could start as something like, a customer would be like, I'd like that. That's something I'm interested in. And if that doesn't get them in, someone else would be like, wow, that's a great deal. And if you want to go so far as someone's like, wow, that's something I can't pass up, on like a third one or a second one, wherever you want it, that's just the power you can have to bring them back. And it can be worth it to you to make these incentives. One of those things is like, wow, I can't ignore that.
Like a last-ditch offer.
Yeah, like a last-ditch offer.
I tried my 10%. I tried my 25%.
Right.
Hey, if you're not going to bite on this one, you're probably moved it to Bermuda or something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So can you so here's a couple different ways you can do that. One of them is if you put in a link tracker, even like a Bitly or something like that, assuming you're not using our software, you could send out a message to everyone. Whoever doesn't click the Bitly, you categorize into a group that you try again.
Sure.
And then you send that one, and maybe you change the offer a little bit. If they don't click it, then you try again. So you're getting a smaller segment every time you do it. If they do click that, you might put it in a category that, hey, these guys are interested based on this type of offer.
Yeah.
So that's one way that came to mind. So we had a question that came in. I think it's relevant to this, but the question from Mark says, could you explain the timing differences between text and emails, basically? Are texts more beneficial than emails? I hate to say that they're always more beneficial, so I'd like to pose it in the way of when is text more, timing on text, which I think ties into relevancy, beneficial.
Right. I mean, I don't know how most people have their phones set up, but for me, typically I might have a vibrate if I receive an email or something. But often I have my phone, make a noise, vibrate, try to get my attention as much as possible when I get a text message. I mean, open rates for text messages are over 90%. And then, how the open rates for emails are so significantly less. And so, how often do you check your emails? I mean, depends on what you do, but it's not as often as you check your phone for text messages. Yeah. So if you want something in the relevancy time, especially in a timely manner, people get text messages so much faster and are more likely to actually view them and recognize what they read through a text message than through an email, because often, the thing with a text is you might see that, but to clear out the text, you click on it, so you actually see the message. With an email, you can just see the one tagline and then it goes to your spam.
So you see it to delete it.
So, yeah.
Well, okay. So with that said, to get more relevant, you got to think of the timing of your text too.
Yes.
If I want people to come in for lunch, I might send that at 11 a.m. knowing that they're going to read it within 10 minutes and come in.
Yeah.
If I'm sending an email, I probably want to send it maybe the night before to ensure that they read it by the lunch special or whatever. Is that safe to say?
But I also say one of the great things is if you use text messages, you can use that timing to keep you on the forefront of people's minds. Because if you send an email, or if someone views something the night before an event or the next day, there's all that time where something may come up and another one of their coworkers is like, let's go eat this at this place, and they're like, oh yeah, let's do that. When the night before they'd kind of use their thing. But if you send a text message in that time where people are making decisions, all of a sudden you have now come to the forefront, and you're no longer that last thought. The first thought, you're the last thought, and all of a sudden oh, you know what? I just got this. Let's go do this. Let's go eat here. And so that's one of the nice things about text messages is often you can stay kind of top of mind more than with emails or in other situations.
Do we have technology to read minds? Because that would be really good to send it right when they think about that.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Bam.
Okay, so I want to tie things up because we've got another question, and I know we're running a little bit longer than we normally do. So let me summarize. I think when a lot of people ask for text marketing tips, they want the text that's going to work for them perfectly.
Right.
But for us, I think it's always more about relevancy, timing, what message you're sending. We didn't even get into tying them together with community events or thinking on looking at the calendar and thinking, okay, people spend more during the holidays. Let's up our marketing budget during the holidays.
Right.
Or even just looking at local events of like, hey, there's a high school game right next door to us. We're going to send a message out for Friday night. I mean, we didn't even get into that. But relevancy then is the key.
Yes.
Over
Absolutely.
context, or I mean, you still have the incentive and all that kind of stuff that you can play around with. Which probably brings me to the final point: is talk about A/B testing for me a little bit. What that means in the world of text marketing and how easy it is to do.
Yeah. I mean, A/B testing comes down to the real theory behind it is that you break up. Well, you have groups that you test different kind of methods of trying to get the same result, but using different methods to get there. And it's really nice because you can break your contacts out into groups by behavior, time, date. I mean, just all these different kind of things.
Or just split it 50-50.
Or you can split 50-50.
I want to try this offer to this group, this offer to that group, and the results there, sorry to interrupt with my input on it. The results there, I think, is going to answer that question of what's my best text marketing strategy every time.
Yeah.
Right? Better than what we can give somebody. We can give best practices.
And the other thing, too, is I mean, anyone can give you suggestions and give you ideas of, like, oh, in the market, people tend to do stuff like this. But really, it's kind of, what's your business model? Who are your customers? Where are you located? What are activities around you? And you know that because you're there. That's your feel. And that's how you're most effective is, again, making the customer feel relevant into the whole game plan is really what's going to make your text marketing effective.
Cool. Okay. Well, I like it. The last question that came in from Jamie Lynn. Can you guys talk about expiration dates on text offers and what's the best strategy for expiration dates? Any off the top of your head tips on expiration dates?
Since I'm doing them all day, every day. Yeah, sure. Expiration dates that's a great question. It really depends on what your offer is and what your business is. For instance, I mean, if you're a food industry, I mean, you want to probably keep it down to a week offer, kind of thing, because you want them to come in on a quick time. So
there's a scarcity nature to that.
Scarcity nature.
If you leave it open forever, they get this mindset of I can just deal with it forever.
Yeah. And the thing is, you want to motivate them. But if they have other activities, if it's like a birthday party, or something like that, well, you can't really say just a week because there's planning involved, and so maybe a month. It really depends on what you're doing. But it's always important to have expiration to these kind of events. That way, there is a sense of urgency. But not only that, it helps you to be able to not have outstanding events.
So here's a tip from one of our case studies with an ice cream shop. You ready for it? And it has to do with expiration dates. So what they were testing is we're going to do, and it ranged from like a 2 to 3 day window. What they found is they had substantially more people come in if on the date it expires, they sent out they didn't change the offer.
Right.
They just said, hey, it's your last day. And they only sent it to people who didn't use it. They said, hey, just a reminder, it's your last day to come in to use this.
Right.
And they got like 3 or 4 times the results as they did the very first time. Because what a lot of people do is I'm driving in my car wherever and I get a text and maybe I glance at it, but I don't have time to respond or act on it. I put in my mind, I'm going to go get that promotion. And then I forget about it.
Right.
And then that last day comes and it's like, I already made the decision to do this. I forgot about it. I better get in there, and they act on it. So again, A/B test it, but that's a great A/B test is set an expiration window, and then the day or the day before, but I really like that day of the expiration, send a reminder that says, hey, this is the last day, and see what you get out of it. Ultimately, you're looking, if you're using an average text marketing program with average pricing, you're probably 2 to 3 cents per text, right? So you can test 1,000 messages to 1,000 people for $20.
Right.
Becomes really efficient way to A/B test, get relevant. This is my summary, by the way. Anything else for you that we need to summarize here?
No. I mean, just keep in mind that the text message is a great way to build relationships with your customers. And one thing that I just wanted to mention kind of at the very end of just everything is you can use text messages to let your customers talk about you. One thing I just wanted to mention is you can set up text messages if someone, like for instance on behavior, if someone's come in 3 times, you can set up a message to have a link that goes out to them and invite them to review you online, or to be able to say something about you somewhere about how great they think you are. And so don't think of text marketing as just a one-way street of you talking to your customer, yelling at them, because that's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be you talking to your customer and giving them opportunities to talk back to you.
I love it. Well, thank you, Channing. Thank you for being here. I think that really helps. Just a couple reminders out there. If you have text marketing tips yourself, throw them in the comments. We'd love to see what you guys are doing that's effective, and we'll try to find more case studies, post them as well. We're live here again from City Grow. I think we'll end on that, and we'll see you guys next time.